Paul Nuttall, the new Ukip leader, is an unpatriotic politician who has nothing but contempt for British values and for British traditions. He is a man with contempt for his own country. Strong stuff, I'll give you that, but the evidence for it is absolutely overwhelming. What is one of our proudest institutions? An institution that is the envy of the world, an institution that is part of being British. It's our National Health Service. The NHS is something Paul Nuttall wants to destroy.
I would like to see more free markets introduced into the health service because this is the way it has to go.
Boo hiss.
Now weirdly, he wrote this on his blog but then deleted it as though he was ashamed of his unpatriotic attack on our National Health Service, because he said this: "I would like to congratulate the coalition government for bringing a whiff of privatisation into the beleaguered National Health Service. I would argue that the very existence of the NHS stifles competition, and as competition drives quality and choice, innovation and improvements are restricted. Therefore, I believe as long as the NHS is the sacred cow of British politics, the longer the British people will suffer with a second-rate health service." He wants to wipe out the National Health Service. He wants to replace it with a kind of system which they have in the United States, where you have this rip-off, fragmented, inefficient system which is run in the interest of big businesses. Big businesses that have no loyalty to the interests of the people of this country, who will put the health of British people second to profit. That's what Paul Nuttall wants. Are we happy with the British way of public health care, which puts people's health and well-being ahead of profit? Or do we want to go down an American style, or the sort of healthcare system they have in other countries, which we're ashamed of in this country because we're proud of our NHS? Paul Nuttall supports a flat tax of 31%. That means everybody, other than the very poorest, pays the same proportion of tax. That means if you are a teacher, a nurse, whether it be you're somebody who works in a call centre, you're an entrepreneur, the real wealth creators, the people who keep this country ticking day after day, then you should pay the same amount of tax, the same proportion of tax, as the elite in this country who have run this country down. The bankers, the city, the financial sector where his predecessor, Nigel Farage, began his career, the people who are responsible for the mess that this country is now in. And he wants to give them this massive, whopping tax cut to reward them for their failure, to reward them for the fact they've run this great country down. The working people of this country, who we owe everything, who keep this country ticking day after day with a hard graft, they deserve better than being thrown into the same tax bracket as the spivs and bankers who are responsible for an economic calamity from which we are yet to recover. Here's another value that British people have courageously fought for with huge determination and conviction, and that's the right of LGBT people to have the same rights in law as straight people, that if you fall in love with someone who happens to be the same gender, then you should have the same rights, that you should be able to get married, for example. Now that's something which has huge consensus across Britain. Not for Paul Nuttall though. Again, Paul Nuttall wants to attack something which British people now hold to be sacred, and that's equality for LGBT people. So for example, in 2011, when two hotel owners refused to allow a same-sex couple to have the same bedroom, the court ruled that that was illegal, that was unlawful. Paul Nuttall came to their rescue. He came to the defence of people who discriminate against British people simply because of who they are and who they love. The fact is, most people in this country just moved on. They just accept that, you know what, other people love people of the same gender, and what's wrong with that? There's no issue, is there? You don't have to do that. If you don't want to share a bed with someone of the same gender, then don't. It's up to you. Obviously, if a hotel wants to provide a public kind of opportunity to make profit, then they have to abide by certain laws, like health and safety, and not discriminating against customers based on who they are. When questioned about diversity in UKIP's top team, Paul Nuttall protested that
My deputy is an open homosexual.
An open homosexual? Who even says that anymore? I mean, it is worrying, but also faintly comical. Here's another thing that British people have had to fight for, and that's the right for women to have control over their own bodies, the right to choose, that if they're pregnant, that they can decide whether to have an abortion or not. Now, he's someone who wants to restrict the right to abortion to the first 12 weeks. Now, in America, if you want to go over the Atlantic and kick off about abortion and have kind of all these people with placards outside abortion clinics, then, you're more than catered for. But that's just not the way we act in this country, And I think, again, The vast majority of people in this country have moved on. Now, if you love this country, you want to protect it. And one of the big threats facing this country is, of course, climate change. Because with climate change, what we face is an existential threat to the future of our planet and the future of humanity. And that will affect, of course, Britain. But Paul Nuttall says it's a money-led scam. That's what he says. He says that we need to be assured about the credibility and motivation of scientists aboard the global warming wagon. Now, if you support basically allowing Britain to be devastated in generations to come by climate change, then he's your guy, back him. If you don't and you want to protect this country, then he is not your guy. Climate change is also a massive opportunity for jobs in Britain, because in Germany, instead of having the approach of you let industries go to the wall, you don't do anything to replace them, to invest in other jobs, what they've done is they've actually intervened in the economy to create and invest in hundreds of thousands of renewable energy jobs, decent skilled jobs with dignity, with security, backed up with apprenticeships for young Germans. That's the approach we should have in this country, instead of leaving young British workers underemployed or unemployed altogether, with devastating consequences for the rest of their lives. Now, there are lots of people across the country, including where I grew up, who are disillusioned with Labour, who've been disillusioned for a long time, and I perfectly understand that. But I don't think backing a party led by Thatcherites, who believe in the ideas and policies of Margaret Thatcher from the 1980s, that devastated industries across the country, that left these communities bereft of decent, secure jobs, and privatised industries and flogged them off to, either German or French companies, or the French and German governments for that matter. I don't think that's the solution to your problems, because this lot, they want policies that will favour the elite in this country, the elite who are so responsible for the problems that we face. It's like Donald Trump, and this lot obviously embed Ukip with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a plutocratic billionaire who claims to be against the elite of which he's part. This lot are just the same. It is not patriotic to want to reward the elite who are responsible for our problems and do down working people in this country. It just isn't.
No buts! No junior doctor cuts!
A patriotic thing to do would be to defend our National Health Service, to reverse privatisation, not increase it or abolish the National Health Service, and to fund it properly. A patriotic thing to do would be to give a decent living wage for working people. A patriotic thing to do would be to have decent social care for older people so they have a comfortable retirement which they're currently being denied. A patriotic thing to do would be to defend workers' rights, which Ukip want to erode or scrap altogether. Labour need to get far more northern voices to the forefront, people like Ian Lavery in the North East, people like John Trickett in the Shadow Cabinet, Rebecca Long-Bailey from Salford. Their policies need to be framed through a prism of what is best, particularly for the North, where people feel completely left behind, completely abandoned by an elite down here in London that doesn't care for them. But if you want a patriotic answer, Ukip isn't it. Their leader is unpatriotic. He has contempt for our institutions and our values. He wants us to be more like countries like America rather than Britain. He wants to erode rights and institutions our ancestors fought for at such cost, people we should be proud of. So let's expose Paul Nuttall and Ukip for what they are, unpatriotic charlatans who are taking the British people for a ride. So I want to hear your thoughts. What do we do about Ukip? What's our strategy? Maybe some of you think I've been unfair about Ukip. I haven't, by the way. But leave your comments anyway and have a go at me. Why not? And I'll read out some of the comments having a go at me. That's a fair exchange. But I want to hear your thoughts as ever. Please get in touch. Subscribe. I'll see you next time.